finishers and factions catching action.
And welcome to another episode of Finishers and Factions Does NXT. Yet again, we are coming to you from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. And after such a phenomenal Raw the night before, NXT had a lot to match up with. But introductions first. I, of course, am your host, Adam. I am doing this on my own this week, just because Rich had some family issues that he had to deal with. He had other shit he needed to do. So, as a good co-host, I step in and take the reins. Now, we are looking this week at, even straight from the off, we had an opening interview promo with Stephanie Vaquer. As she makes her way to the ring, she will reveal that she is calling her shot for Stand and Deliver tonight. This very evening she is doing that. And as she makes her way from backstage into the performance area, and she will be at ringside for the very first match, which is a women's singles match featuring Jordynne Grace and Jada Parker. And honestly, this match came across much more than it came across less like a wrestling match and more like a straight up fight, as these two forces clashed almost immediately. It was a phenomenal match, and if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. But of course, I will break down my personal highlights for you. Jada Parker with a huge blockbuster at one point during the match. Parker trots out some of her classics as well, like that corner butt bomb that she so happily does. Grace showing off that immense strength and power that she seems that seems to be just her signature trademark at the moment. There were a few missteps as well. Grace seems to go for a dive through the ropes but fumbles it. I think her knees or her feet might get caught on the middle rope as she's making her exit, but this is one of the reasons they call it high risk, folks, and one of the reasons why here at Finishers and Factions we emulate the WWE's message of do not try this at home. These are trained professionals, of course. Now, the match itself ends in a no contest because Stephanie Vaquer cannot seem to keep herself out of the action here. She seems to have gotten herself involved. It ends in a complete no contest. And honestly, the match just degenerates down into a full-on fight between Stephanie Vaquer, Jordynne Grace, and Jada Parker. We are no closer at this stage to knowing what the outcome of this is going to be, but just as quickly as it starts, it changes into very much a 2-on-1 situation where Jordynne and Jada both go in after the champion in this case, and they are not stopping for anything. Well, until, of course, we see the return of the former NXT Women's Champion, Giulia, who we haven't seen since she lost her title a good few weeks ago to Stephanie Vaquer herself, and seems to come out to very much help her friend, one of her very best friends. But even that seems to be a complete fugazi, as soon as the ring is cleared, even to the shock of Jordynne Grace and Jada Parker themselves, Giulia hits a Northern Lights bomb to Stephanie Vaquer to end the segment. I mean, we end the segment with shock painted well and truly across the faces of both Jordynne Grace and Jada Parker, and we are just left with an image of Giulia with her foot on the face of the champion with the belt in hand, standing over the lifeless body of our current women's champion. And what a way to start NXT this is. I mean, I don't know about you, but at this point I was gassed. we then move on from that match to the VT recap from last week, where we see, obviously, Ricky Saints claiming the North American title from Shawn Spears, who held it for what's seemingly a very short amount of time for what it was worth. And he hadn't even held it for 20-30 seconds before all of a sudden Ethan Page hit a twisted smile on him in the middle of that ring. And yeah, we know that we're getting a program involving these two gentlemen coming up so very soon. But yeah, we had that VT recap and then went into a backstage promo where we see one of our favourite tag teams from NXT, or one of my favourites anyway, is Hank and Tank, still reeling from the tongue lashing they got from Nathan Frazer last week, and are joined by the Tag Team Champions opponents for this week, which is Swipe Right from WWE Evolution, which is their new developmental brand. And apparently they're doing some really phenomenal work down there in Evolution. I personally have not seen it, as I honestly, between Raw, SmackDown and NXT, plus the PLEs and being able to go out and earn a living, I simply do not have time to sit and watch more wrestling in my week. It's one of the reasons why I don't watch any TNA or AEW either. If I had to watch all of them, I would have to give up work. And if I give up work, I'm not going to have anything to watch those programs on. It is as simple as that. So they are basically coming along to offer some advice. Obviously, in the last few weeks, we've seen Hank and Tank trying desperately to get as much advice as they can from different tag teams. Basically, Hank and Tank seem to be suffering with one hell of a identity crisis, it just carries on from there. Now, Swipe Right do leave at this point to go for their match versus Fraxiom, which is the next match out. However, before that happens, we have another VT promo. Now, this VT is based all around the culling and basically how, well, everybody apart from Shawn Spears is still reeling from his loss last week to Ricky Saints, where he lost his title. Now, the members of the Cullen are trying to take responsibility. They're trying to say, look, Shawn, we let you down, mate. We let you down, and it's just, it didn't go the way we wanted it to. And Shawn is very honest with them and says, look, I am thankful for the fact that I got a championship reign while I was at the head of this group, but ultimately that is not what this group is about. We are about getting success for you guys. That's who we're getting it for. And we're going to start by refocusing and focusing on Izzy Dame and her qualification for the Women's North American Championship ladder match at Stand and Deliver, which is later on. And Jensen Brooks and Nico Vance's target is going to be Hank and Tank this week, which is another match we get later on in the card. Now, this does bring us very nicely back to the second match of the evening, which is a men's tag team match, which sees Fraxiom, the current NXT men's tag team champions, versus Swipe Right, which is made up of Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes. Again, they are from WWE Evolution, and honestly, I can't fault what these two gentlemen put out there. They are incredibly young, incredibly hungry, and they put on a fantastic match. Obviously, we know with Fraxiom, we're going to get it thick, we're going to get it fast, and it's going to be absolute chaos in the ring. But whatever these gents have been doing has obviously been working for them, as they have ascended to the tippy top of NXT Tag Team Division. But let's break it down a little bit further, as we've seen in the last week or two there have started to be cracks forming in Fraxiom's armor. As it was revealed, I think it was last week on NXT, or it might have been last week on one of the main roster shows, that Nathan Frazer and Axiom, while tag team partners, and obviously they hold what every tag team in NXT is going to aspire to, they are not friends. They do not consider themselves friends. They consider themselves allies and associates. And that's the one thing that I think Axiom wishes he had with Nathan Frazer. But honestly, Nathan Frazer is coming across more and more like a narcissist every time the man opens his mouth, as he lives to tear down his opponents. And yeah, it's giving major narky vibes. And honestly, I'm not here for it. Not a fan of Nathan Frazer as a character. His performance in ring, however, speaks entirely for itself. The reason I'm talking about this, of course, is because Fraxiom have a little disagreement at the beginning. They can't decide between the two of them who's going to start the match. As soon as they get to that point, they're still arguing, and Ricky Smokes of Swipe Right decides to take advantage and runs and drop kicks Axiom off the ring apron to get the match started. And honestly, I think if I had to take a choice between either one of these two gentlemen, I would probably take out Nathan Frazer, especially as he started this match. And yeah, as I said, we know that with a Fraxiom match, we're going to get it thick, we're going to get it fast. And they did not disappoint. Smokes and Baylor managed to work up an early offense, but ultimately, you're against a championship team. You're not going to get very far when you're from a developmental brand, and nobody really expected these two to walk out of here with a win. I mean, it would have been a massive upset win if they had, but ultimately, once Fraxiom gained some control, they managed to start increasing the pace, which is where they like it, where they want it. It means that they're getting what they need out of the match. And yeah, there were a few bits and pieces where Swipe Right still developed a good amount of offense, but ultimately, I mean, move of the match did come from Nathan Frazer himself with a butter smooth float over springboard double neckbreaker DDT combo. And honestly, that is the best way I can think to describe it in words, because otherwise you're gonna have to see this shit to believe it. But Axiom did manage to get his own move in as well with a super Spanish fly, followed by Frazer hitting a Phoenix splash as Fraxiom gained the win over Swipe Right, which closed out that match. Moving on from here, we know that since last week, and Stephanie Vaquer vacated the Women's North American Championship, there has been a ladder match put together at Stand and Deliver this year to determine the new champion. And this will be a 6-woman ladder match. The combatants involved are being determined by qualifying matches last week, this week, and then finally next week as well. Now, this next backstage promo involves seeing Fatal Influence, which of course is Fallon Henley, former North American champion, JC Jane and Jasmine Nix, who are discussing the North American Championship qualifier. Basically, Fallon Henley, as the former champion, believes she's more entitled to enter the match. So comes in and says, look, I need you guys in my corner. I'm going into the qualifier match. Whereas JC Jane sort of points out the fact that, hang on, you had the title, you lost it, it's my turn. And an argument sort of erupts between the two. Between the two of them as we sort of see this little power vacuum evolving between Fallon Henley and JC Jane, which gives Jasmine Nix a phenomenal opportunity to just step in and go, actually, ladies, hold my phone. I'm going to go and get this match. I need you both in my corner. Peace out. Basically walks off for the match happily to go and take part in this match for it. Now, Jasmine Nix, we haven't seen her compete in a singles match for over 6 months on NXT. We've seen her a lot in tag team competition, but as far as a singles competitor goes, I did a quick bit of research. I think the last time she might have competed was somewhere around the July mark of last year. And even then, I don't think she walked out of that a winner. So she doesn't have a tremendous amount of momentum going into this match, especially considering her qualifier is to be against the surfer chick herself, Sol Ruka. And Sol Ruka Sol Ruka obviously already has skin in the game, as her tag team partner Zarya has already qualified, as well as Kalani Jordan, both of which will be competing at Stand and Deliver for that title. Now, this match, I will be honest, I think Nix put on a passable performance, but in terms of the fact that we haven't seen her on NXT TV compete in a singles match for over 6 months, it really showed. There were some real signs of ring rust to me. I didn't get a massive amount from her. There were some brilliant moves, do not get me wrong. She gets Sol Ruka in a headlock, which admittedly Sol Ruka gets out of it with a handstand, which could have been massively problematic for her, but it seems to have worked really well in her favour on that particular instance. Nix actually performs a really smooth move of it's called a perfect plex into an inverted camel clutch, which I really like the look of. Whereas Fallon Henley and JC Jane were trying to get involved from the outside, trying to give Nix the best chance she could of winning, but Nix just didn't have it in her. She did manage to land the Nix kick on Ruka, but only manages to score a 2 count. But Sol Ruka eventually qualifies for the ladder match at Stand and Deliver after hitting a picture perfect soul snatcher for the win, which honestly couldn't have been better if somebody had drawn it. If somebody had animated that shit, it still wouldn't have come out as perfect looking as that one did. And congratulations to Sol Ruka, who moves on as the third entrant. So this match is now at this point in the episode, it is half full, and we are moving swiftly on as Sarah Schreiber starts the first of 3 interviews that she has this evening with the members of the main event for the evening, starting with Javon Evans, basically asking him about his match. Now, he has a match later on versus Dark State, or 3 members of Dark State, of which we haven't been told who they are just yet. And he will be facing them with his Stand and Deliver opponents, the NXT Champion Oba Femi and his co-challenger Trick Williams. Now, Evans says basically he knew that Dark State was going to be a problem. He has been trying to point this out to anyone and everyone that will listen, but he's just sick of being little broed now because he is such a young superstar. I think he feels a bit babied by the rest of the roster, especially Trick Williams and Oba Femi, who a lot of people seem to compare him to, which understandably they share a lot of the same attributes. But Javon Evans moves, wrestles. He conducts himself in an entirely different way to the Ruler and Mr. Williams. And he's just sick of being babied by them. He's not looking to emulate any of them. He is very much looking to win on his own terms, being his own man and all the rest of it. Now, he is just going to take this one step at a time. He is focused solely on beating Dark State tonight, and then will shift his focus afterwards to Oba and Trick Williams afterwards. Now, we do go from there into the parking lot of the Performance Center, where we see Julia leaving for the evening, I believe, where she's flagged by a camera crew, simply ask, why did you go about attacking what everybody believed to be your best mate? You had your best mate there with you and decided, no, I'm going to attack them. What'd you do it for? Now, we have pointed out on this podcast before that Julia's command of the English language, because she is not English is not her first language, has always been sort of broken, but this time she sort of really plays to it, as she simply responds by saying, stand and deliver, no friends, rematch. I don't think you can get any clearer than that in this instance, because yeah, she wants a rematch, which she hasn't officially had for losing her NXT title. And she also, she's not going into this thinking of Stephanie as her friend, because Stephanie is her opponent. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because as we know, part of the trade-off for Stephanie Vecchio abandoning her title or vacating the North American Championship was that she got to call her spot for Stand and Deliver and the NXT Women's title. Now, we move on from here into match 4 of the evening, where we see Hank and Tank versus Brooks Jensen and Nico Vance of the Culling. Now, the one thing that I did find funny about this match was actually something that happened on the Culling's entrance. So Nico Vance manages to make it into the ring, no issue at all. Brooks Jensen, however, seems to have a real problem getting up the ring steps as he falls up the steps on his way in. And he could have tried to ignore it. He could have gotten really annoyed with himself. But no, fair play to the man. He sat there, he laughed about it as the crowd were laughing. Well, I think they initially started as laughing at him, but they were laughing with him. As a British person that sees somebody fall over, the first thing that comes to mind is, "Way!" Yeah, basically the same thing that happens when waiters drop glasses or plates in a pub or restaurant. It's the same all over Britain. So for anybody listening outside of the UK, you will not understand that reference at all, whereas most people in the UK will have done this or heard this at some point in their life if they've ever been to a pub, bar or restaurant. Anyway, I didn't get a fantastic amount of notes for this because honestly the fan took over, the podcaster didn't, but Hank and Tank had everything. They had all of the right ingredients to get this going right, and just could not close the deal for it. And honestly, I felt so sorry for them because they came out, they wrestled a phenomenal match with some fantastic spots in it, but the Culling were just that little bit more laser focused. They had that little bit more of an edge coming into the match, and yeah, it was just a case that the Culling ended up walking out with the victory for that one. It is a match I implore you to go and watch because I did genuinely enjoy it, and I think it's easy to see why I got to a point where I was feeling a little bit sorry for Hank and Tank by the end of it. But we go from there into an in-ring promo for the new men's North American champion, Ricky Saints. Now, I haven't been terribly complimentary about Ricky Saints on Finishers and Factions, and the reason why is because I've said it before. I just don't think he's worth the money. So far, he hasn't showed me personally, what the money they are likely to be paying him is paying for. I just don't see the appeal of Ricky Saints. He's a half decent on the mic, I will give him that. His in-ring ability, I couldn't do it, but then again, I couldn't match the worst superstar out there. I haven't got the stamina or the athletic ability to do any of it. But I think in comparison to some of his colleagues who are currently in NXT, I think that he has been brought in with a lot of bluster and a lot of pomp and circumstance, but I'm just not seeing where you back that up. Now, Saints comes out basically talking about how he's a man of his word. He promised us on day one that he would turn NXT on its head, and in fairness, he's done that. He's possibly approached, or if not broken, a record of the distance in time between when a superstar debuts in NXT as to when they end up with gold around their waist. Because, I think, what are we looking at, maybe 4-6 weeks since he first appeared on NXT? It's got to be somewhere around there, I think. But it's not been a tremendously long time. But he's turning his attention to all ego Ethan Page. Obviously, earlier on I talked about very quickly a VT promo that was shown, which we saw Ethan Page putting the new champ down with a twisted smile slam. And basically Saints talks about how all egos, little ego is obviously that damage beyond repair, that it's obviously can't take how quickly Saints has got from where he started to where he is now, and basically calls Page out. He's like, dude, seriously, instead of sneak attacking me, come out and talk to me like a man and we'll figure this out. And we do get somebody come out, but it's not Ethan Page. So he is joined in the ring by the current Heritage Cup champion, Lexus King. Now, he hasn't got a very good rap on this podcast either, but that's because he looks like a complete moron. Or I might be being a bit strong there, but basically Lexus comes out and says, I'm looking to expand my golden collection. I've got the Heritage Cup. Nobody's challenging me for that one. So I'm going to come out and challenge you for the North American Championship instead. At which point we're then joined in the ring by Eddie Thorpe, who comes out and talks about the fact that Saints is being handed opportunities while others, namely himself, are left out in the cold. And basically Thorpe lays claim to the title because of his ancestors. He believes it's his birthright. Now, this is when we are joined again, another interruption where we are joined by Mr. Wesley, flanked by Tyreek Igwe and Tyson DuPont, to stake his claim. Now, during this promo, I'm going to be honest, out of everything that's said, and there isn't a lot that I don't cover in my notes, but it's a case that Eddie Thorpe makes what I find to be a potentially problematic statement about King being just another entitled white man who isn't happy with what they have. Now, we know that he's coming at this from his Native American background and things like that, but even Wesley stands in the ring and is visibly shocked at the fact that this is what this man decides he's coming out with. And honestly, I can understand why. I think he possibly could have chosen his words maybe a little bit better. There is definitely some discussion around what was said. I've done the research. Obviously, I'm not recording this as it goes out. I've recorded this a few days afterwards. And there's definitely been some discussion around what was said by Eddie Thorpe. But no action has been taken at this stage. And basically, Saints cuts in and says, look, you guys are going to have to find a different time and place to figure this out. At which point, Ethan Page comes in from behind and hits him with a second twisted smile. Now, this promo ends, as all four men in the ring grab the title as Saints is laid out in the ring. And this just starts a brawl between all four gentlemen in the ring. And in the end, Wes Lee is the one that's left standing, which is probably a good thing as he's got the next match on the card. Now, we then go backstage where we join Ava, Robert Stone and Stevie Turner as Stephanie Vicure comes in to announce that her match at Stand and Deliver will be a fatal four-way featuring obviously her as the champion, Jordan Grace, Jada Parker and Julia. So the Women's NXT Championship will be defended at Stand and Deliver in a fatal four-way match, which honestly I'm not mad at. I'm not mad at this match booking at all because, yeah, you're not getting much better than these four women in this division. Jordan Grace, obviously the outsider coming in. Stephanie Vicure and Julia, we already know, can have a good match in a singles competition. And we've seen recently that Jada Parker can 100% throw down. But, yeah, phenomenally done and phenomenally booked. Now, we do go to a slightly different area of backstage where we see Sarah Schreiber in the second of her second interview. I really just realised that actually later on when we speak to Oba Femi, he's not being interviewed by anyone. He is just speaking directly to the camera. He is breaking that fourth wall, speaking just directly at home and in the arena. But Trick Williams is asked about his match at Stand and Deliver and feels that there's always somebody else in his way. Before it was Eddie Thorpe, now it's Javon Evans. He's not just getting ever a straight shot at being at going for the championship that he feels he should never have lost. Now, Trick is planning on bringing his A game from now until Stand and Deliver. And he hopes that Javon and Oba are planning on doing exactly the same thing, as he plans on walking out one way or the other as NXT champion, which you can't deny the guy's ambition. He's definitely been through the ringer to try and get his rematch with Oba Femi since losing the match at New Year's Evil. So yeah, 100%. Now, our fifth match comes at this stage, which sees Wes Lee with Tyree Gigway and Tyson DuPont versus Yoshiki Inamura with Josh Briggs in his corner. Now, this match was born out of a promo that was cut last week where Inamura basically said, look, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, Wes, but you're not the same as you used to be, which, do you know what, is fair comment. I see that as fair comment. I don't know Wes Lee all that well, but the Wes Lee that we have now is more than likely not going to be the Wes Lee that we had so very long ago. So yeah, no, it's definitely not the same as it was. But do you know what? Inamura starts this match in the best way he possibly can, which is he starts strong and early. The minute he comes face to face with Wes Lee, he picks him up and spine busters him into the ring apron and rolls him inside. It's a fantastic way to gain an advantage in a match, and I can't fault Inamura for doing it realistically. Now, a majority of the notes that I get for this are mainly focused around Inamura's offense. As at one stage, he does a huge one-armed flip on Lee. And I mean, the weight difference between the two men is obvious just by looking at them. Not saying that Yoshiki Inamura is an overweight gentleman. By all means not. He is just of a stockier build than Wes Lee is in comparison. And yeah, loved every second of this match as well. Now, Wesley seems to compete with an almost cocky offense. I mean, at one stage, he literally sits across the shoulders of the challenger Yoshiki Inamura and tries to pin him that way. At which point he gets launched face first into the ropes, which honestly I can't say I blame Inamura for at all. Now, Yoshiki Inamura does stay in control for a vast majority of this match, just sort of powering his way through. And this is where Tyson and Tyreek get involved, as I've called it snapping the ropes. Now, they didn't actually break the ropes, but it was enough to sort of ping the ropes as Inamura was up on the top rope. He was getting ready to do a frog splash that we've seen him do so many times before, and this snap of the rope basically destabilized his balance. He ended up falling, at which point Lee hits something called a cardiac kick and ends up scoring the win over Inamura. Now, this obviously leaves Inamura being incredibly frustrated that this all could have been avoided had Tyson and Tyreek not been out at ringside. And honestly, I would say this is more on Inamura for not sort of stipulating that there's no outside interference or anything like that, as Wesley has proven in his most recent matches that Tyson and Tyreek will get involved at any point they possibly can. We go from there into the final backstage again, I can't call it an interview because it is very much a promo at this point. We see Oba Femi training up, doing that last little bit of resistance band training ahead of his match against Dark State later on. And basically he encourages Dark State, put your best foot forward, do your best, because you've only ever dropped me from behind. It is a case that you aren't going to get the better of the ruler. And then says, look, I'm going to focus on you tonight. Once I've put you down, it is a case that Trick and Javon have all of my focus. And I encourage them to do the same thing as well, as they will not under any circumstances take advantage of the ruler in this way. And basically, believes that no one beats the ruler. Now, obviously, we know this isn't true, but he is obviously very, very pleased with himself at the moment with how he's been getting on. Now, we move from there into match 6, which is another Women's North American Championship ladder match qualifier, which sees Izzy Dame, who is accompanied to the ring by Nico Vance and Brooks Jensen of the Culling, versus Ren Sinclair, who is also, she's accompanied by the rest of No Quarter Catch crew. Now, Izzy Dame came out of this hyper aggressive, as we sort of thought she might. Now, Ren Sinclair, I haven't seen her wrestle at all. Not even in tag competition since she's been since NXT has been on Netflix. So I don't really have a massive amount to compare her against. But honestly, seeing as how this was her first attempt against somebody who's as much of a heavy hitter as Izzy Dame, I think Ren Sinclair did amazingly well. I didn't get a fantastic amount of notes for it because there wasn't a lot of spots in it. There wasn't a lot of sort of highlights almost. I mean, the big thing that came out of it, Izzy Dame secures a victory with a sit-down style spine buster. And the only thing is that Izzy Dame ends up actually she ends up celebrating the victory of the match before the 3 counts even finished. She technically broke the pin before the 3 count was finished, which caused a little bit of confusion in ring, but we worked past it regardless. So we went from that match knowing now that the 4th member of that ladder match is going to be Izzy Dame. So we now know that it's Zarya, Sol Ruka, Kalani Jordan, and Izzy Dame in that Women's North American Championship ladder match at Stand and Deliver. Now, we went from there into a I called it a backstage promo. I think it was a GM office promo, which sees Ava really getting it in the neck from Meta Girls, Fatal Influence, and Roxanne Perez. None of them having a match at Stand and Deliver currently. And basically we're treated to the fact that Ava has come up with some kind of plan to do with these. We don't know if it's going to be a tag team match. If it is, it means that Roxanne Perez doesn't have a tag team partner. We're waiting to find out what Ava's plan is with these women that don't have a match at Stand and Deliver. We then go into a backstage promo which sees initially Uriah Connors and Kale Dixon watching their match tapes, figuring out ways to improve. As we see Andre Chase come up behind them and basically say, look, nothing wrong with your confidence, you just need to slow down, you're moving too quickly. As they probe for more guidance, Andre sort of walks away, but they're not letting this go. It's a case, look, we want to learn, please tell us. And he goes, do you know what? Fuck it, I'll go for it. As he turns back around and goes to give them some pointers. At which point we hear a massive crash as Hank and Tank steal focus completely. They're just becoming more and more frustrated at their lack of wins. At which point they probably got the best people to speak to out of anybody, which is the WWE Men's Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits, come in, who have suffered more than their fair share of identity crises in recent memory. And yeah, I mean, it's a case that basically Street Profits give them the best advice they could possibly hope for, which is be yourself. You don't need to be like anybody else because you are Hank and Tank. Be Hank and Tank. And they also sort of drop a little spoiler for just a few moments' time, which is that there is a gauntlet match with a chance to face Fraxiom at Stand and Deliver. Now, this match is then rolled into this match announcement is then rolled into by commentary, who basically come across and say that the match has been announced, where we'll see Briggs and Inamura versus Tavian Heights and Miles Bourne of No Quarter Catch Crew versus Hank and Tank versus Brooks Jensen and Nico Vance of the Culling versus Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe, which of course are Wesley's flunkies, and they will all face each other in a tag team gauntlet match for the number one contenders, and I believe that is next week on NXT. So a massive match to be announced. As well as that, we have confirmed that another number one contenders match is set for next week as well. This one for the Men's North American Championship, which will see Eddie Thorpe versus Ethan Page versus Lexus King versus Wes Lee. So we have got some killer matches for next week. But speaking of killer matches, I think we've got nothing left to do other than go into the main event of the evening, which was the six-man tag team match, which saw Oba Femi, the current men's UK champion, the current men's NXT champion, with Trick Williams and Javon Evans, his opponents at Stand and Deliver, versus Dark State. Now, it isn't until the match begins that we know that it is Dion Lennox, Saquon Shugars, and Cutler Jones, who is in the match officially, with Osiris Griffin hanging around on the outside. Now, Rich, who presented last week's episode, did a phenomenal job of breaking down who these men were and what we could expect of them. If you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen to Rich's Finishes and Factions Does NXT for last week, which would be for the 2nd of April. I implore you to go back and listen to it, because he did a really nice, succinct, really nice sort of to the point breakdown of what we can expect from each of these men. Now, as soon as Dark State hit the ring, it wasn't a case that they came out and the three members that were in the match burst onto the scene. It is a case that all four members go in and just completely decimate Oba Femi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. I mean, Javon Evans is thrown from the ring like a rag doll. The guy wasn't meant to fly that way, as much as he is bouncy. Oba Femi and Dion Lennox start the match, and Dark State take control really easily to begin with, and it's partially because of this this sort of initial explosive attack they've come out the gates with. And throughout the early stages of this match, I'll be honest, we very much get the impression that Dark State have got an answer for almost everything that the Stand and Deliver main event team are sort of dishing out. And at one stage, it even looks like Trick Williams is going into business for himself, trying to take out Dark State all by himself. And honestly, I think out of this match, the biggest egos in that ring were Oba Femi and Trick Williams. And they just clashed with each other more than they clashed with their opponents. And unfortunately, the person that ends up losing out in that circumstance is Javon Evans. Now, Javon Evans is quickly becoming one of my personal favourites on the NXT roster, just because his offense is really exciting. I relate to him quite a lot. He's just a phenomenal talent, and I think if at Stand and Deliver he lifts that title off Oba Femi, it will be completely circumstantial, but it would be a phenomenal boost to that boy's confidence. And I'm here for it. 100% I'm here for it. It'll be the twist that nobody is expecting whatsoever. But Javon Evans, once he gets in this match, there's very little that's going to stop him. But once Evans is in this match, unfortunately, he is in it for the long haul, as Dark State, once they gain control with the match with him in it, it is a case that they are looking to keep him exactly where he is. And they're not letting him go for love, nor money, nor anything else besides. To the point that Lennox drops a massive spine buster on him. I mean, the commentary even describe it as a spine-jarring spine buster. I mean, spine busters aren't fun anyway, hence the name. But yeah, we're not looking at anything overly pleasant here. Now, Javon Evans desperately trying to get the tag at one stage, but Dark State playing a really good tag team game here. Of once one gets kicked off, they perform the quick tag, which just keeps that ring sort of split directly in half, but eventually manages to get the tag, and I mean, Oba sort of forces the tag onto himself as both him and Trick are stretching out, they're reaching for the tag. Javon has his choice, but realistically, Javon's just looking for a breather to get out of the match for a minute, and Oba just pushes Trick's arm away, gets the tag for himself, gets in the match, and in fairness, completely decimates Dark State at that point. I mean, he has had a long time at this point to sort of recover from that initial beating, and he certainly seems to have done all of that. And unfortunately, now Oba may sort of throw this off as being accidental. The angle of the throw tells me definitely not. But he does end up throwing a member of Dark State into Trick Williams, which just inevitably starts the beginning of the breakdown between the team of the main eventers, as Trick Williams will not stand by and be disrespected in this way, and basically goes off to fight Oba Femi back into the backstage area. Now, this unfortunately leaves Javon Evans on his own. And despite a complete valiant effort, Javon he completely succumbs to the numbers, and Dark State do end up getting the victory with a poor decimated Javon Evans left completely prone in the middle of that ring, and if Oba Femi and Trick Williams could have just kept their egos in check, they could have 100% had this match in the bag. But they just couldn't do it. They weren't physically capable of doing it, and that is on them, 100%. Now, after this match is over, we see Dark State celebrating in ring when all of a sudden the D'Angelo family's music hits. Now, we know as much as we know about Dark State because they went off and did some recon against them. They wanted to know what was going on. And they shared that information with us in a VT last week. Now, a different VT is playing on the Titantron over the ring, or overlooking the ring, which sees Stax Lorenzo of the D'Angelo family calling Dark State out in the parking lot next week. Now, this is now the end of the NXT episode. We've got one more episode before Stand and Deliver. And my God, it is slated to be an absolute barn burner. Now, we use that turn of phrase a lot here on Finishers and Factions, but honest to God, if you missed next week's NXT, I wouldn't even bother watching Stand and Deliver, because I feel like there's going to be so many shockwaves sent through NXT from next week's episode. It's going to be untrue. Now, thank you so much to each and every one of you that has decided to give me a listen today and listen to me ramble on. The next time you will hear from us will be NXT Does SmackDown. Now, I am also putting together a special Hall of Fame episode, which will drop the day before the Hall of Fame ceremony is due to take place, and this will give you an overview of every last entry into the class of 2025, and my aim is for it to be about between 30 and 45 minutes long. We're not looking at it being a tremendously long episode like our normal episodes would be, but we are looking to try and get something out for it, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Until then, and thank you to everybody. Until next time, see yous laters.